Shalom, shalom, Shag Samak Mishpaka. Here we are again on the Day of Atonement at one moment. You know the story, the Midrash. The bride comes unto the husband during atonement. That's what we're celebrating now. We are on the 10th day of the 7th month, Yom Kippur. Thought I'd do a little video here on the birth of our Mashiach. So I want to give a trigger warning here. This may challenge your paradigm. There's probably, I think most of us have all assumed or have gone along with the idea or the concept that the Messiah was born around this time. And so if you have seen my Birth of Our Messiah series, you'll know that I've started to kind of lean towards a different time period based on what we see in scriptures. So I wanted to do this little video here to show what Yom Kippur has to do with the birth of our Messiah. So how are they related? What is Yom Kippur in relation to the birth of Mashiach? Well, it has to do with the book of Luke. In the book of Luke, it talks about in Zechariah chapter 1 that Zacharias was in the temple by himself. And so it's kind of curious if we look at Exodus chapter 30 verse 7 through 10. It says that Aaron shall burn thereon sweet incense every morning when he dresses the lamps. He shall burn incense upon it. And Aaron shall make an atonement upon the horns of it once in a year with the blood of the sin offering of atonements, Hak Kippurim, the Kippurim, right? Once in the year shall he make atonement upon it throughout your generations. It is most holy unto Yahweh. So forgive me, we're in the middle of this hurricane. We've got some rain going on, so if you can hear that in the background, that's what that noise is. But hope everyone's safe from that if you are in its path. We're up here in Tennessee, so I think we'll be okay, but we've got some raging rivers, that's for sure. Anyhow, so we see here in Exodus 30 that once a year the priest is to go into the inner sanctum and he is to burn incense before the altar. There's some, I guess, debate as far as Hebrews and Exodus, what it talks about. But if you look closely, it says, the altar of incense is before the veil, so it's within the same room as the Ark of the Covenant. And Yahuwah says in Exodus 40 verse 5, you shall put the golden altar for incense before in front of the face of the testimony, and has set up the screen for the door of the tabernacle. So the altar of incense is within the inner sanctum, the Holy of Holies. Leviticus 16:2 says, and Yahweh said to Moshe, tell Aaron your brother not to come at any time into the holy place inside the veil before the mercy seat that is on the ark, so that he may not die. For I, Yahweh, will appear in the cloud over the mercy seat. So Yahuwah says that he himself is going to appear. And we know that how Yahuwah appears. If you watched any of my videos, we see that Yahuwah always appears via his agents, his messengers, his angels. Yahuwah is spirit. He is everywhere, always present. But at times he will manifest himself as his own angel, as a representation of himself who delivers the message. And so we see here that he will appear in a cloud over the mercy seat. So fast forwarding to the birth of John the Baptist, right? Zechariah's father. It says that he was in the temple by himself. People are outside praying, and he's offering incense. Luke 1 verse 5, in the days of Herod, king of Judea, there was a priest named Zechariah of the division of Abijah. And he had a wife from the daughters of Aaron. Her name was Elizabeth. And if you're familiar with the story, I'm sure you know that Elizabeth was barren. She did not have children. And so Zechariah is in the temple and he's offering incense. And it says that he was part of Abijah, the 8th division. So 1 Chronicles 24:1, the divisions of the son of Aaron were these: the sons of Aaron, Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. And you keep reading down to verse 10. The 8th is Abijah. And so people haven't put this together, but now that we have a little more information from the Dead Sea Scrolls, we see that they were on a rotating schedule. It wasn't the same time all the time that they were serving in these priestly duties. And the Dead Sea Scrolls shows us that during the Feast of Weeks in the 7th month, that Abijah could have been serving, or his division, that division could be serving during this time period. So it's not out of question that during this time he would be in the inner sanctum serving, burning incense. So we keep reading in Luke chapter 1. It says, now while he was serving as priest before Elohim, when his division was on duty, according to the custom of the priesthood, he was chosen by lot to enter the temple of Yahweh and burn incense. And the whole multitude of the people were praying outside at the hour of incense. So if you're familiar with the story too, when the priest would go in, everyone else would wait outside. And in this instance, Zechariah goes in and has an appearance. It says in verse 11, there appeared unto him the angel of Yahweh standing at the right side of the altar of incense. So the altar of incense is in there. It says he will appear before the mercy seat. So all these people are outside waiting. They waited outside to actually see if the priest would die, because if you know the story of the priest going inside, tie bells to him, they tie a rope around his leg in case he's found to be a sinful man. They'd have to drag his dead body out. But in this instance, Zechariah sees the angel, and the angel gives him a message and says, hey, you're going to have a baby, and his name, you're going to name him John. So John the Baptist is proclaimed by the angel here. And it says that after this time period, it came to pass that as soon as the days of his ministration were accomplished, he departed to his own house. And after those days, so after the days of his service in the temple during Yom Kippur, which is in the 7th month, Yom Kippur is the 15th day, or the 10th day, right? His wife, Elizabeth, conceived and hid herself for 5 months. So if we take the information given to us that Zechariah was offering incense during this one day out of the whole year, that's the only time this happens, that he would be in there offering this incense, as we read in Exodus, that at this one day, right after this, he leaves and goes home, and Elizabeth conceives. So we can assume that around this time period, the conception was made. And you know, the story of the bride is 5 days later would be Sukkot. That's kind of like the honeymoon, right? So that's, you know, goes home, she conceives for 5 months, she hides herself. And some people have said, you know, she hid herself because, you know, she's going to have this baby, and maybe John the Baptist is a potential Messiah, potential candidate for the Messiah. Maybe, but I think, you know, he is, you know, he's from just the lineage of Aaron, and he's not from Judah. He's a Levite, but he's not from Judah. So I don't know if that really holds water. But anyway, he would have definitely been, in the ranks to be a high priest. And so she hiding herself, that probably sounds familiar, where Joseph wanted to put away Mary to hide her pregnancy, so that his baby would not be killed, because during this time they knew the Messiah was going to be coming about. And so, Herod tried to kill the babies. They're always trying to destroy our youth. And so that's just typical of how the world works, is to abort the children, to get rid of them, to kill them as much as possible. But if we keep reading, we see in verse 26, it says, "In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from Elohim to a city of Galilee named Nazareth." So many speculate that this is the 6th month of the year. And so this is how they get the birth of the Messiah being born either in March or September. And we always want to tie it to a feast day, but we don't need to speculate, because we can just keep reading. It says, "Behold," in verse 36, "your relative Elizabeth in her old age has also conceived a son, and this is the 6th month with her, who was called barren." So right here we see that the angel visits Miriam. She says it's the 6th month. He says, the angel does, Gabriel says to Miriam, it's the 6th month of her pregnancy. So if we were to calculate from the 7th month of the year, 6 months later, that would put us back to the next year, the following year, at the 1st month, which would be Pesach, Passover, right? So we don't need to speculate. We know it's the 6th month. 6 months later, from the 7th month of September, during Yom Kippur, would lead us to the 1st month of the year, Abib, which is March time frame, March, April. So Mary was not yet pregnant when the angel visits in the 6th month to tell her, "Hey, Miriam, you're going to have a baby." It's the 6th month of your cousin's or your aunt's, your kinfolk. It's her 6th month of pregnancy. So that takes us to the biblical year, or the biblical month of Abib, March. It's springtime. So it says that Mary, she goes on down to Judea. Mary goes to Judea to visit Elizabeth, and Elizabeth prophesies over Mary regarding the future of her child. Here in the 6th month, she's either just conceived when the angel was there, maybe a few days early before Pesach. I suspect that Miriam went down to Judea to partake in the festivities of Pesach, of Passover. So it's at this time she's likely conceived in the March-April time frame. And if that's the case, then being in the 1st month of the biblical year, Abib, which is the 3rd month of the Gregorian calendar, around March time, 9 months later, that puts us at December. So 7th month, Elizabeth conceives. She hides herself for 5 months. The 6th month, Miriam is visited by the angel. Miriam visits Elizabeth in Judea. And the 6 months after the 7th month, when she's visiting her, is the 1st month of the year, Abib. It's during Pesach. Miriam conceives the Pesach lamb. 9 months later, we are in December. The Mashiach is born. Now, I know what you're thinking. We've all been taught the Sukkot. We've all been taught the biblical feast, that he had to have been born around those times. But there are signs. There are things that could lead us to say that, hey, he was born during December. And we can go research more about like when Moses in the 10th month, and there's actually other events taking place in the 10th month. But if you look at the signs in March is what? It's Abib, right? So what is Abib? Abib is when the seed is young and tender. It's a time when germination takes place. So if you look to the heavenly scroll, we see that the seed, the spica, is rising out of Virgo. So that's the samach in her hand. During the springtime is when we start to see Virgo, the Betula, rising up in the night sky, and she has the seed in her hand. So the seed is rising in Virgo. This is also the time period when we see the sun crosses the equinox. It makes a sun cross, like kind of like a bullseye. Or you could think of like a seed in the womb. If you haven't, check out my video on the palm signs. Not reading palms and the way that the world does it, but just looking at the signs of the palm, that it will be a sign upon her hand and a mark between her eyes. So, and if you're not aware, the sun, S-U-N, is often a metaphor for the sun, S-O-N. And even if you look in German, S-O-N-N-E is translated as sun. So Sonne, sun. So it's often used as a metaphor many times. So in March, the seed is young and tender. Time of germination takes place. If you move on to Yom Teruah, which we just celebrated, and at this time period, Day of Atonement, the 7th month, September, according is announcing the king is soon to come. So Revelation talks about the dragon's tail taking up the third of heaven, or 3 months. He's waiting to devour the seed of the woman. So the sun is still in Virgo at this time of year and has not come out of the woman. So around September 17th, 18th, whenever you may celebrate your Yom Teruah, the announcing of the sun, it's still in Virgo at this time period. And then 3 months later, the 9th month of conception, December, the sun, S-U-N, crosses through the Milky Way. And if you look up the Milky Way, that is the way, right? That is the sun riding on the clouds, the different metaphors for that. But it's like it's like a newborn crossing over through the matrix, bringing in new light after the longest period of darkness in the cold winter months, as he moves into Sagittarius, the rider who's on the horse with a bow. He's the great hunter, the one that defeats the dragon. And so we see these different signs. There are more than this, but I just wanted to share that as far as, a potential that, hey, maybe the Messiah was born during December, and that's kind of part of the diversion. You have Saturnalia, you have other religious cults and stuff that are around this time, and maybe that is a good counterfeit, right? The best counterfeit is the one that most closely resembles the true version. So what if the counterfeit is to keep us from really looking at those days and just brush it off as, oh, that's Saturnalia, that's pagan, don't look at that. I don't know. What do you think? Why don't you put your comments in there if you have questions? I'd love to hear from you. Give me some feedback. I think these times are such a blessing to be just a part of the household. We might not all see things eye to eye, but for the most part, we're all on the same team. We might have different calendars. We might have different perspectives or understanding of scriptures or more insight than others, and that doesn't make us our enemies. Our brothers and sisters need to come together and work out these things. They need to see these things through to bring honor and glory to the Father and to His Son, and that we are that body, that bride together, that each one of us are important. So I would really love to hear from you. Please leave me a message in the comments, and if you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and do that, and share this video, and Share your heart with the world. Sure love you. Shalom.